fabrics, because our backgrounds are from design, and we've both worked in fashion before, and that was kind of what got us to change our careers, and kind of led us both to be doing what we're doing now. We just kind of wanted to talk about, you know, how kind of complicated some of the discussions are of fabrics, and that there are so many different kind of avenues that you can go down. You know, there's some amazing fabrics out there that are planet friendly, but it's just kind of understanding those, the do's and don'ts and the certificates and things like that. So we kind of just wanted to discuss the journey we've kind of been on, where we're kind of at the moment with our brands, and the fabrics, and just kind of to help everyone, you know, just back up a bit more information about what you can buy, and you know, and things like that. So, you know, we've kind of discussed quite a few different topics, so hopefully it'll be of some interest to people. And if you've got any questions, just yeah, type it in the box and we'll try and discuss as we go, if that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think also that innovation in fabrics is moving quite quickly, especially in the sustainable fabric area, that it's sometimes a little bit hard to keep up with the new developments that are going on, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So do we want to start? Well, first of all, we were kind of looking at the kind of combination between natural fibres and man-made fibres. And maybe the best place to start is polyester, do you think, to discuss?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the most common. It's certainly the most common fibre that we see in our clothing nowadays, and it's the most common synthetic fibre out there. And I guess it's used quite often to replace what would have, you know, what natural fibres would have been used for.
Yeah, and obviously it's made from oil, so you know, it's not made from a sustainable source. And you know, the production of it, apparently at the moment there's like half of clothes are actually made from polyester, and it's even set to double in the next 10 years. And you know, obviously there are some positives of it, you know, because in terms of it being a fibre for use, because it, you know, it doesn't crease when it's washed, it's water repellent, obviously it dries quite quickly. But I think, you know, as we all know, the long-term effects of that production and having that in the kind of system is, you know, it's a massive negative one, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
I mean, it's not only the source it's not only the oil that's being used to produce the polyester. It's then the care and the end life of that product. You know, effectively, if you're buying a t-shirt made out of polyester, you're buying a plastic t-shirt. Every time you wash it, it's going to be shedding microfibers. When you throw it away, it's going to be, it's basically like throwing plastic in landfill. You know, it's the same thing. It's still going to take X number of lifetimes to break down. So I lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's it's not just the kind of production process, but having said that, it's kind of like the whole plastic conversation as well. Like there definitely is a place for it in kind of medical wear and things like that, but in our kind of day-to-day wardrobes, you know, most of the time it's preferable to kind of choose natural fibres.
Yeah, I think it's just that it, like you've said, it's that whole process of knowing that it's going to be here forever. And there's the whole, you know, obviously recycling and things like that, which we're going to discuss a bit more later, which, you know, is a way that you can reuse it. But I think the problem is that there's just too much of it and it's being produced. And I think, you know, having to kind of constantly producing all of this for such a cheap price just isn't sustainable at all. And it's something, you know, that is still escalating out of control. So I think it's kind of, you know, everyone knows this about polyester, but I think it's mainly trying to direct people in the right way for alternative, more natural fibres, which are obviously, you know, much better. But then we've got the conversations about cotton, you know, that we've
definitely. And also it's not just like you say natural fibres, but that's quite a broad term. You know, within that you have like animal, plant, mineral fibres. Just because, and I've had a very similar conversation about skincare products recently. Just because it says it's natural on it doesn't mean mean it's vegan, or doesn't mean it is not, it's cruelty free, because obviously you like wool, cashmere, silk, things like that, they are all leather, they're all natural fabrics, but depending on your kind of your preferences, they may not necessarily be fabrics that you would choose. So it kind of goes a little bit deeper beyond that kind of level of just natural fibers.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the issue, isn't there? There's so many different levels to each of them. Kind of working your way through it to kind of work out what's right for you as well. And again, then it kind of comes back as well to then kind of like looking after it. You know, if you've got loads of polyester clothes in your wardrobe, that's fine. We all have, haven't we? It's one of those things, we've all kind of gone out and bought those products, but it's about kind of looking after them again, and kind of making sure then that you've bought them because you love them and you don't want to get rid of them, and then they stay in your wardrobe and you can, you know, reuse them and just take care of them. I think, you know, the main thing is that people kind of, they look after them and they want to be able to, you know, keep them for a long period of time.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying, I mean, obviously with this comes up a lot around the conversation around sustainable fashion. The most sustainable clothing is the clothing that you already own. And a lot of people are like starting to sew at the moment, starting to knit or crochet, like taking up new kind of skills and new projects as well in DIY projects. And the question I get asked a lot is where to buy fabric from. And like, first of all, the most sustainable the best fabric is the one that you already have. So if you've cut like your curtains in half to shorten them, how can you use that leftover fabric you just cut off your curtains, rather than going out and buying a different fabric for cushion covers?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's definitely, and I think it's just like you say, thinking about it in that new way, isn't it? It's, you know, being mindful of your waste. I was just thinking then, I thought the other day about, I looked in my wardrobe and I had this check dress, which is not what I'm going to wear, but I thought actually it'd make amazing napkins.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's like, well, that just goes to show my taste in clothes. But I thought, you know, now I don't like that kind of check anymore. So it's about, you know, repurposing it, upcycling it, which is obviously what your brand is based on as well.
Yeah, talk about that a lot.
Yeah. So I think cotton, so obviously we've talked about polyester a little bit, and both agree that it's not very good, however you look at it. But like we said, you know, there's ways that you can kind of keep on making your wardrobe, you know, keep on living through your wardrobe, keep updating it in terms of like fixing it and things like that. And then in terms of kind of cotton, you know, obviously a few of your things are cotton based. What kind of background have you?
Yeah, so I've struggled a little bit with cotton. The things like this, and there are like cotton pads, they're quite easy to find, organic cotton. But as with all fabrics, as soon as you start to add things like a different dye or a different finishing process, you know, maybe that fact you're kind of changing the properties of that fabric. And you know, like linen, for example, is biodegradable, but yet certain dyes put in linen may mean that it's not biodegradable, or that it's, you know, harmful. I'm just going to quickly answer that question. So Lizzie says she found a website that sells dead stock fabric. Do you think that'd be good to use if I need to buy fabric? Yes, there is one called New Craft House, which is in London. I don't know if that's the store that you were thinking of, and they have designer dead stock. So they have some really gorgeous fabric, but it goes super, super quick, because they obviously, when buying dead stock, you only have a certain amount. Good to know that other one. And I will look that up after this. And another thing that I do sometimes is I'll go into a fabric store and I'll look in their remnants bin, and then I will buy those fabrics, because even though they're technically new fabrics, you know, these fabrics they're kind of awkward sizes, so they may not be big enough for other projects that people would, you know, they're not like 2 meters or whatever that you may need for a bigger project. So I will buy up those, save them having to go in the bin, and they're often cheaper as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to kind of use fabrics, because so many places have leftover ones or stock that they can't sell, which most of the time are kind of gems. I mean, any of the fabric stores, especially in London on Berwick Street, they always have
they always have a remnant
of ones that are much cheaper, and then I mean, they have to kind of get rid of them that way, otherwise they would be going to waste. So I think that's definitely a great place to kind of start.
Definitely.
You can get so much out of them as well, I think, and you can mix and match and things like that. I think that's a really good.
Yeah, and you get something that's truly unique. But sorry, going back to what I was saying about cotton, the things that are natural colours that are unbleached, undyed, they're generally really easy to find organic. But where it gets harder is when I want something in a print. That it gets harder to find things that are organic. So then there may be, I'm gonna say this wrong, but there's another certification, Okotek, which is another one that doesn't mean that it's organic, but a few of my cottons are then, or if I can't get hold of organic cotton, I will look for something that's maybe been, it's maybe hand woven. So say for example, it's been hand woven using little to no kind of electricity or energy in that respect, or renewable resources. So I do have a few pieces that are cotton, and I'm constantly looking for a better alternative, and kind of, or an organic alternative. Otherwise, I will then upcycle shirts, cotton shirts, and things like that, which aren't, you know, it's rare that you find an organic cotton shirt. So often they're just normal cotton.
But that's still closing, you know, it's closing the loop, isn't it? And I think that's the important thing when it comes to that, because otherwise, you know, buying new cotton that's not organic, I think is, you know, it's a misconception that it's okay still. I think it's there's still massive problems with the whole supply chain, and especially, you know, in places like Uzbekistan, where, you know, the cotton uses so much water. So going into the production is that, on top of then they, you know, they're overproducing it and competing with the rest of the world. So they want to produce it at a cheaper price. So they're not paying a fair wage for their workers. So you've got people who are kind of in slavery and having to produce, you know, pick this cotton and produce it at such cheap prices. And, you know, also, you know, with the water, with washing it as well, and like you say, then bleaching it and looking after it and all that kind of stuff, it's a massive there's a massive problem with it still. And obviously, people like GOTS, and there are a few others, BCI as well, working really closely to kind of change that whole system from the beginning where it's grown to the production and how it gets sent to all the fabric mills. So they're working really hard to kind of really close up that whole supply chain, because obviously as it goes from one person to the next, you're obviously getting a lot of different hands, and that's when it gets hard to certify things if it's not all
definitely loop. I think that's an interesting point about the certification process, is the to be certified, the fabric, the fiber has to have met the requirements at every stage, from being grown to being spun and woven to then being treated. So, and also it takes a little while to get the certification. So there are, like, so for at the moment, organic cotton only accounts for 1% of all cotton grown, but that doesn't mean that there aren't more manufacturers or kind of farmers and producers out there that aren't using that are using the kind of natural processes that haven't been able to get the certification yet. You know, they're working towards it still. And also, like with any kind of certification, they cost money. So smaller brands, smaller production companies may not be able to kind of afford the certification
Yeah, I think that's why BCI, what I've heard, they're kind of you as a company, as a brand, as a UK brand, you can pay into to support. So it means that poorer farmers in places that, you know, they can't afford to necessarily you know, have this certification, as long as the brands supply the money, it means that they can then join the group and then they actually get invested in, which I think is really good, because it's, you know, easy to sit here and say, oh, you know, they all need to do it organically and they should be doing this and that, but actually, you know, for them, they've been farming like this their whole life. They're just adapting as demand grows, and, you know, with time they've kind of realized that, you know, that they think they need all these pesticides and they think they need all this water, but actually, you know, reducing the pesticides can actually be much better for the soil and mean that their crops grow a lot better. So, you know, having these schemes where they kind of get a little bit of help from the brands that are selling them, you know, we've got the demand, so we need to be, you know, helping the source. So I think that's really interesting that they do that. And I know lots of brands like are, you know, investing in that as well. So with time, like you say, lots of cotton is getting better. It just takes time, doesn't it, to close this, to close the system,
catch
really.
up. And I think it's the BCI that has a list of people that use, the companies that use organic cotton, a list of mills that produce it. And so like there's they have like loads of contacts as well on there, so you can find, you know, you can kind of connect the dots with different people. And I actually, shameless plug, have a blog post on my website about natural cotton, organic cotton versus cotton.
Check it
I spent
out.
ages researching, so I'm just going to post that in the comments.
Yeah, share it. There's more information. I mean, there's so much information out there, isn't it? That's the interesting thing. I've also been looking into, well, rethinking about linen a lot as well lately, because obviously, you know, we all know it is a better fabric, and I think it is just interesting that when you kind of start looking around your house and you are slightly getting more aware of fabrics and what you own, and you can see, you start to understand, you know, how they dry or how they wash or how, you know, things like that. And that's why I think linen's quite a good one, because compared to cotton, it uses a lot less water. It can be grown just naturally from the rain, and although, you know, it has natural creasing and things like that, it's, you know, it's much more breathable. It's obviously much better in the summer to wear and things like that. But also thinking about it for like your bed linen, you know, if you're going to buy a new bed linen, do you need it to be cotton? If you can't find a good organic cotton alternative, linen is also such a good one. So I think there's kind of a whole, I don't know, once you start thinking about it.
I don't know whether it's like a phase that I'm going through or whatever, but I'm slightly obsessed with linen at the moment.
Yeah, I know, me too. Me too.
And so I've just released a new collection of linen tea towels and linen napkins, and so some of them are linen and tencel. And when I was sourcing the fabrics, and I knew that I wanted a tea towel, when I went to the fabric shops and I was touching them, I was saying to the sales assistant, that I wanted to use it for tea towels, but I really didn't think it was thick enough. And I had in my head that tea towels needed to be this like really kind of thick, durable fabric. And she was like, no, we use it as tea towels in our like kitchen, in our office. It's really, really good. And I was like, okay, so I brought some, and then I made some samples and have been testing them out in my kitchen. And yeah, they're so absorbent, and they're so much better than kind of the normal tea towels that I've used in the past. And even like they feel quite a bit thinner and quite a bit lightweight, but the absorbency of them just, and like, and the durability as well, you know, they last forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've got a lovely brand as well called Piglet in a Bed, and they kind of source all theirs from France, which is lovely. And their kind of focus is on it being a bit more of natural dyes, because obviously the main problem with linen is if you get it completely stark white, that is obviously a lot of bleaching, which is bad, which is obviously what makes it then, you know, a bad fabric and fibre. So they do a whole range of kind of really naturally dyed linens in a beautiful collection of like bed linens. They do pillows, they do everything. And I think it's just nice to kind of find a brand that's made linen as well, like look, you know, really nice, and that you kind of want to buy it, like your tea towels. It's nice to be reusing it in a new way and seeing it just, I don't know, it's just like bringing it back again, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's really
definitely.
nice.
Did you know that natural dyeing started because they wanted the medicinal properties from, say, the berries or whatever for the fiber? So like, I guess if something was used to treat wounds, they would dye the fabric in that, because they thought that the dye would help give that fabric those properties.
So have you tried lots of natural dyeing at all?
Yes, so I have, and I actually have a stash of avocado skins and stones in my freezer at the moment that at some point I'm going to try and dye with. And I think I used it a lot when I was doing my GCSEs and A levels as well, like playing around with natural dyeing. I haven't been very successful with it. The thing that works really well for me is turmeric, but turmeric stains everything it touches, so that's not really surprising, is it? Because I tested out dyeing when I was going to release the organic cotton pads, because I was like, you might not want them in a natural colour, but the colour that they came out was so much worse than I was like, I would just keep them natural.
Yeah, and it's getting it even as well, isn't it? That's always the thing, you know. It's cool if you want to do some kind of tie-dye, you know, chilled, whatever comes out kind of pattern. But then when you're actually trying to produce it for, you know,
on large scale, if there was like just the dyes that I could buy, then I'd probably do that. But the the prepping the plant ingredients and the mordant and fixing and things like that is, I haven't figured out how to do that on large scale in my kitchen yet.
Yeah, without making too much waste as well. I suppose that's the thing, is you don't want to then be, I don't know, getting through all these kind of berries and I don't know, and then not working, and it's kind of a bit of disappointment.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of, so now if we're thinking about kind of recycling fabrics, we've kind of touched a bit on polyester. Have you come across many recycled polyesters that, you know, you're kind of interested in, or what's your thoughts?
I guess for me, my background is in sportswear. So obviously recycled polyester is a massive conversation in that industry. You know, a lot of brands are moving towards recycled polyester. A lot of swimwear brands you know, marketing themselves as using regenerated, I'm not sure that's the right word, but like recycled ocean plastics to make swimwear, which as a concept is amazing. And I was talking to someone the other day that was on one of my podcast episodes, we were talking about I can't remember the brand she said they were doing it, but old trainers were being used to make running tracks, which is a really nice way of kind of like bringing that around. And I think one thing to say on that note is quite often when recycling a garment or recycling a fiber, they don't often you don't often get them recycled up or recycled to equivalent of most times things are downcycled, especially when it comes to plastics. And yes, I was just about to get onto that point about microfibers. So I have a guppy bag that I wash my sportswear in. Your guppy bag? I think that's what it's called. And to be honest, in the years that I've had it, I haven't ever noticed any fibers coming out of it, but I haven't washed that much new sportswear. So if after a certain amount of time, it doesn't shed as much. And I think that's definitely something that we should be aware of, you know, that it does still shed those microplastics, and at the end of its life it is still a plastic garment.
Yeah, I think there's definitely quite a lot of issues with kind of recycling polyester. I think that the massive waste that you're still going to have at the end of its life, because it still is polyester, and you can only recycle polyester a certain amount of times, and you can only recycle certain polyesters. If it's a blend, if it's something like that, it's then it's much harder. And like you say, you still get the microfibers in the ocean, which is obviously totally then not what you're wanting at all, and it closes the loop slightly, but it doesn't.
And I have no kind of research to back this up, but I worry what happens if demand overtakes production, because at the moment there's so many brands out there producing recycled collections, recycled polyester, recycled plastic collections, that and there's such a demand for it that I worry about what happens if we can't recycle that quick enough. Are they going to be like bulk buying new plastic bottles to recycle?
Well, yeah, I have heard that before. Yeah, I have heard people have been doing that apparently, which I mean is just awful. When we were first, a few years ago, when I was working at a company, and we were looking into this whole recycled polyester, thinking, it was, obviously something positive, is it something we can do? And there were people saying, make sure you get it certified, because people are producing new plastic bottles and then turning it straight into recycled polyester. So like you say, if the demand goes up, people will still kind of try and find a way to make this material, which isn't, again, it just totally eradicates any of the kind of positive work that anyone was doing, and it kind of makes it again this massive thing that there's an issue with. And I think it's a big problem to potentially look out for if demand.
And surely we're all working towards the point where we have no plastic left in the ocean. So it's like, well, then what are we going to make it from? And there are natural fibers out there for sportswear that do have similar properties. Bamboo is sweat wicking. Tencel is another one I've seen used in sportswear and things like that. And but some of these may be really great for yoga wear, but may not be so great for marathon running. So I think that there's definitely going to be more innovation around this, about how those kind of properties can be replicated in more sustainable fabrics. And I think, like with anything, unfortunately it does open up the doors for greenwashing, but there will be brands that are doing amazing things. So I need to check out that link that Joey has put in there, because I haven't heard of them.
That sounds good. I have heard of them, but I haven't. Sorry, we're just having a little look now. Interesting. I think the idea of recycling fabrics and fibers is obviously a positive one, in the sense of it closes the loop. So if it's not necessarily polyester, then it's recycling cotton. Again, that is that is a positive thing, because we do have lots of post-consumer waste. Obviously you've got to sort through colors and blends and things like that, and there is a more labor intensive process to recycling it. And I think that's what you have to always weigh up. If it's organic and it's being grown in the right environment, and it's the people who have made it have been fairly paid, then obviously that is a positive thing. Whereas if you're recycling it and a lot more processes and chemicals to kind of try and change all the color, things like that are going into it, then it's a lot harder to kind of justify it being then repurposed again, because some of what I've read about some of the carbon emissions for regenerating this existing material is it doesn't make it positive. So again, it's just another conversation, isn't it, to try and
definitely. And I find the transparency around how much of our textiles actually get recycled is really hard to find out. There's a lot of There's a lot of clothing bins around, and there's a lot of stores that have clothing bins offering you to bring back your garments. We'll recycle them and we'll give you a £5 voucher so you can buy more.
Yeah.
But there's there's very little in terms of like facts and figures being like how, you know, what percentage of this is actually being recycled, what percentage of this is being recycled back into clothing, and you know how much of it is just going into like insulation and things like that. So, and I think it's our whole, you know, we are more kind of aware of our household recycling, because that's something that there's been a lot of is spoken about a lot more, whereas our clothing recycling is definitely a lot more of a grey area.
Yeah. We've got a few questions. So Rebecca's saying, is it better for the environment to have a cruelty-free or vegan-free wardrobe, or a plastic-free and natural fibre wardrobe?
I think that's a really, really interesting question. And I think so it's difficult. So I find it difficult because I try and have a sustainable wardrobe, but I'm also vegan as well. So for me, if I wanted something that was leather or leather looking, say I wanted a bag, do I go out and buy one that is made from polyester or from plastic, or do I go and buy a leather one? And in that case, I would choose secondhand leather, I think, because the garment.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I agree. I think, like she said, you know, can you both, and have you achieved secondhand shopping? Yeah, that's, I think, is, you know, the most sustainable thing you can do, is just to buy things that have already been worn and loved, and you know they are good enough to go from secondhand. This is from a secondhand shop. You know, most of, you know, lots of our wardrobe is, you can get amazing things, and I think it's, you know, it makes it a bit more exciting shopping that kind of way. I think there's like two arguments for vegan and plastic free, and they both have their major issues, and you know, and I think we could probably argue both sides just as much.
I try and take it on case by case basis as well. I have a few pieces that are not real leather, but they are secondhand. And I have a few pieces that are leather, like for example the belt I'm wearing today is leather, but my grandmother gave it to me and it's probably like twice as old as I am. But when buying new, I probably wouldn't buy leather. But I think that garment is already, that item is already out there, it's already been made. I may as well prolong its life as long as I possibly can and get as much use out of it as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, that's just the main thing, isn't it? You know, thinking about it not being in terms of washing, in terms of new garments not being polyester, so you're not washing those fibers back into the ocean. But then thinking about, you know, if it's a belt or something like that, that it's, you know, it's a bit more sustainable to kind of have it that it is secondhand or pre-loved. So Lizzie's also saying, she's heard, not sure how accurate, that there is a lot of that goes to Africa, to clothing markets, has a negative effect on local garment producers there. I mean, I've seen lots of videos on, not necessarily the garment producers, but you know, they're kind of overrun with all these secondhand you know, garments that we're just tossing away, you know, sending overseas, that aren't even good enough to be resold or anything. And I think it's another major problem, isn't it, that people, you know, when you're giving your, you know, pre-loved clothing away to go somewhere else, you know, you need to think about how it is, you know, is it good enough to be worn by someone else? It doesn't matter where they are in the world, you know, is it gonna be able to have another life? And I think by, you know, just chucking them all away if they're dirty and things like that, and then shipping them overseas doesn't really solve
and I think that applies to if you're taking items to a charity shop here as well. You know, I've worked in a charity shop in the past, and everything gets sorted through, and everything that's,
Yeah.
you know, if you're getting rid of it, like, why are you getting rid of it? Is it just because you don't, it's not your style anymore, or is it because it's like minging and you don't want to wear it, you know, because then someone else isn't going to want to, and all that stuff that gets sorted through, like, that still goes somewhere. It still gets kind of thrown away somewhere else, or sent abroad. And I haven't really heard that much about the negative effects on local producers, but that would make sense. If there's a surplus of anything, it has a negative effect on local people trying to sell it. And yeah, also if you're giving clothes to a charity drive or something like that, like, think about what you're giving them. Do they want a cheerleader outfit? Possibly not.
Yeah.
Maybe they need a warm coat instead, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's interesting. And then what's Joey saying? What materials and fabrics are not on the market? Excited to see. Oh yeah, well I'm so into all these
Pineapple leathers,
fibers being used.
yeah,
pineapple, all that kind of stuff. I think that's where it's really exciting, and I think lots of people are obviously developing these fabrics all the time, and I think it is going to be really interesting to see where it takes us. I mean, yeah, I love the idea of it. I mean, we've already got like pineapple, some watches by Botch, an amazing brand that are doing the straps. And I think, you know, thinking about it in that sense, you know, it doesn't have to be then plastic, it doesn't have to be then leather. It can be something that is, you know, an end of a life skin of a fruit that we can, you know, obviously sustainably try and grow. But I think it's definitely an interesting conversation where it will go.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's so right what Joey's just said about the vegan market needs to offer more than PU and microfiber. And I think also it's really important to know if something's labeled as vegan, if it's a vegan bag or vegan shoes, that doesn't mean it's sustainable. That just means that animal products haven't been used in the production of it, you know, just because it has that label on it. But yeah, I agreed. Pineapple leathers, I'm very excited about. And yeah, I'm excited for big brands to take on board, to invest in the innovation, so brands like myself can have it more accessibly, and other you know, smaller brands can have access to these things. And I know a lot of brands that work with offcuts. I work with offcuts of a few brands, and if there were these sustainable fabrics were getting used much more kind of in general production, then like we'd have, then the offcuts would be, like, you know, from these really good fabrics as well. So it just, the whole kind of chain just ends up getting better. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the kind of the clothing market post dare I say it, coronavirus, and to see what happens, because a lot of the you know, a lot of stores, they churn out collections every 2 weeks or even faster than that, and they're not able to keep up with that pace at the moment because of issues in the supply chain and, you know, government advice. So it'll be really interesting to see how we move forward from this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's obviously going to slow it up, isn't it? It just depends whether the demand is there again after as strong as it was before. I mean, I hope it started to kind of make people think a bit differently and kind of have a little bit more of a branch out and, you know, read up about things, or, you know, listen to conversations like this that kind of then, you know, make you do think a bit differently. Obviously it's so much easier, you know, just to kind of shop online and, you know, get it delivered straight here. But, you know, if you've got the time now to kind of discuss these things, I think it's, you know, like you say, interesting where it will actually end up going. So yeah, we will see, won't we?
Yeah,
really?
it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
So I suppose while we're talking about this kind of issue that we're all facing at the moment. I suppose aftercare, and fabric care is kind of an interesting one to kind of talk about. Obviously, you do a lot of upcycling, and fixing and mending is, you know, probably back on the cards.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a lot of requests for people to learn how to repair and mend things, and there's some really cool companies that I've like recently found or recently worked with or kind of had on my podcast and stuff that are really knowledgeable about looking after your clothing, not only your clothing, your accessories. So I talk about upcycling a lot, but I'm up until a couple of years ago, maybe possibly not even still, I definitely haven't been the best at kind of taking care of my wardrobe. And it's only like my grandmother passed a couple of pieces down to me that she'd worn to my dad's 18th birthday. And I was like, right, if this has lasted this long in her wardrobe, what's her secret? What's she doing? But how is she caring for these garments? And that made me look into it a lot more and think about it a lot more. And like, for example, now I very rarely just put something in the washing machine unless I know that it's going to be okay. I've done a lot of hand washing my knitwear in my bath recently, and also dry cleaning as well. So normal dry cleaners are quite toxic and are quite bad for our health. That's a very basic overview of that. But there's a really good one in London called Blanc, and I think they actually closed at the moment, sadly, but they will reopen hopefully. And but Mathilde, who is the co-founder of Blanc, came on my podcast. It was really informative, and I learned a lot from her about how to care for your clothing. But they do wet cleaning, I think.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and
I've used them.
Yeah, it's much more sustainable. It's much better for your health and your clothes. And also, if you follow them online or go on their website, they share a lot about garment care. Clothes Doctor share a lot, and they also offer a repair service. And for accessories and stuff, if you check out the Restory, they do a lot of handbag and shoe repairs and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's like not necessarily always thinking that, you haven't got the skills to do it. There are, like you said, these amazing brands out there that are offering their services, because, sometimes it isn't as easy. Like for a shoe, for example, it's not as easy just to repair it yourself, however much you want to, and you could try, and things like that are just so easy, really, for someone else to kind of do for you, that don't take long. Shoes are something that so much energy and work goes into creating them. Finding someone local that can repair them, I think, is a really easy and nice idea to keep them in the
definitely
life.
And if you want to have a go at repair, go on YouTube, because the chances are someone else has done it and filmed it and can show you how to do it. And also, I should probably mention that Emma from Socko also does darning workshops, and you have to as well.
So that's good to know.
Go and check out Emma. The dry cleaners is Blanc. Oh, my keyboard's dead.
Blanc, Oh yeah, try and type it in there. Oh, yeah, they pick up and they drop off, don't they, as well, whenever. And then they've got a few.
They've got 6 stores in London.
Stores?
Yeah.
Oh, they've got 6. I did not know there were 6.
They have quite a few stores in London, but they pick up and drop off. Unfortunately, just in London, but hopefully in the future, and as more awareness around how bad dry cleaning is for us, it will spread across the country.
Yeah, definitely. No, they're definitely good ones.
And also, it's not just your clothing as well. Like, obviously, you need to take care of your bedding, and air out your bedding regularly. And if you're getting your bedding cleaned, try and go for natural cleaners, because otherwise you are literally sleeping and inhaling those chemicals all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's another, again, like, isn't it another interesting subject that you don't really think about, that kind of awareness of the chemicals that we're all kind of a bit more aware of it in beauty products now, and we kind of want cleaner beauty products that, don't have the chemicals in them and don't have the toxins that then wash into the water and stuff. But then still, thinking about not necessarily just your clothes, but like you said, the kind of all your fabrics in your house as well. I think, there's so many things that we surround ourselves with on a daily basis, and it's just kind of being aware of
definitely.
Of.
At the moment, I mean, most of my furniture is secondhand, so I haven't had to purchase a lot of new furniture. And I think obviously, like with Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, maybe less so at the moment, but it is really easy to get hold of other secondhand furniture that's mostly in good condition. But yeah, it's definitely something to, you almost need to read the labels on your furniture as much as you do with your clothing. And something that I'd never really given much thought is like, right, well, what happens to a sofa when I'm done with it? Like, where's that going to go? And I don't know, obviously, let me know if anyone knows this, but I don't know if there's anyone out there doing really cool things with upcycled furniture or like turning furniture into things. But I think there's definitely, potential there to do something cool with unwanted furniture.
Yeah, I think people are, and also after the whole lockdown and everything, I think people are going to be getting even more innovative and creative with things like that. It's not as easy now just to get rid of something. You've got to search around and find someone that you say that's doing something interesting with it, or reuse it yourself in some way. I think that's definitely gonna. I think there's definitely gonna be a few things that pop up out of this, 100%. Which is exciting. I suppose that also goes back to, like you were saying, about reading the clothes labels. I suppose it'd probably be quite interesting if people do know what they are wearing. Do you think that that's something that's kind of people just don't know what they're wearing still, or do you think that people are kind of getting into looking at labels a bit more?
Do you know what? I don't know that I've been in a shop in like recently enough to know. I don't think that people still do that. Maybe if you're looking online, you will. I get questioned a little bit about my fabrics, and I'm as transparent as I can possibly be with people. And it's something I look at if I'm looking at something online, but chances are I'm on a store that already is doing good things. And clothing labels definitely can be hard to understand, or a lot of time it would be like organic cotton and it's like 95%, and then the rest of it is like polyester, and it's like it's so I think it's like with anything, like with understanding what's in your food, what's in your beauty products, it does take a little bit of time to kind of learn. And there's a website that I was just looking at called Good On You, and they have a material guide. So I mean, the linen article is from 2016, but linen hasn't changed that much since then. And I think they have brands on it as well. And there's a few other apps also that a few other websites, I can't think of them off the top of my head, that share brands and will go into a bit more detail about where their fabrics are from and what their fabrics are. So I think it's slightly easier if you're looking online, but just when you're in a shop and you're buying something, just have a quick glance at the label and maybe Google it if you're not sure.
I think once you start getting into the habit of kind of looking at labels and then kind of trying to understand or work your way around, like what we've been talking about, recycled or whatever, what is good and what is bad, I think then you just become a little bit more aware of the breakdown of how they are mixed as well. I think that's sometimes a confusing one, but by looking at it more and more, you can kind of really start to understand it, and then it becomes a bit more of a habit, doesn't it, that that's the first thing maybe then you start looking at, which is again a positive thing, because that's really that's what we should be starting with, because then we understand how at the end of its life,
and you'll start to be able to recognize fabrics by feel, and you know, recognize what feels like cotton, recognize what feels like silk, and if it doesn't have the silk price point, you know, it might be viscose, it might be something, it might be polyester. There are bamboo silks on the market, but again, I imagine that they're not cheap yet, because they're still, you know, a fairly new thing. So yeah, you will get the feel of the garment, and also it's worth checking, you know, the label to see how to care for it. And also, like, you can reduce your garment's kind of carbon footprint a lot by just doing little things like line drying it rather than tumble drying and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I know lots of people still like to kind of tumble dry things, but I think line dry it just instantly reduces that carbon footprint down massively. And think about things that, you know, do they need to be washed that often, you know, like denim and things like that? No, you know, just thinking about how you're wearing them, and if that fabric doesn't really need it, you know, you don't have to wash it every time you wear it. It's just you know,
have you ever tried putting your jeans in the freezer?
No, but I have put lots of things in the freezer because we had moths at one point. It worked. Well, apparently it works, but you just instantly kill them all off. So we have.
I've never tried it. We don't have a very big freezer, but supposedly putting denim in the freezer like cleans it. Another thing that I sometimes do, depending on the garment, so say it's like a jacket, like a tailored jacket or something, and you've maybe worn it to like a party and it's not clean, it's not visibly dirty, but it maybe smells, is I'll hang it up in the bathroom while I'm having a shower.
And that's also good as well. Another good technique, isn't it, for without then you don't have to iron either if you've got things that are creased.
So Joey's asking, what are your favorite fabrics to work with? I woven fabrics, cotton, things like that, just because I like an easy life.
I mean, you're the sewer out of both of us. Sewed back in my time, but anything that doesn't slinky,
definitely, it's not a headache to deal with. So when you're choosing the brands that you're going to stock, is fabric something that you look out for, and you know, is it a consideration of yours?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't have a massive collection at the moment of clothing on there, because it's something that I'm kind of really thinking about in terms of the kind of brands that I want on there. You know, I want to make sure that they are sustainable, definitely, you know, through and through. And I think this whole conversation about you know, where they come from, it's just a bit of a journey to kind of really understand each brand story, and I really want to make sure that they are coming from the right place. But then in terms of homeware, I just think it's important to really think about it and kind of really tune into what those fabric properties are, and if they're going to, you know, work well for that product. We've got quite a range of organic cottons used in different ways, and even when it comes down to like this soap, this has got like the little bag, and this is an organic cotton bag, so it's just making sure that all the parts are you know, eco-friendly in that sense, because it means that, you know, you're buying something that isn't necessarily about the fabric, but you want to make sure that you are giving that customer the whole, you know, the whole shebang. So it's definitely something that we really kind of look out for, and more, and as the, you know, as brands become more innovative, it is exciting to kind of see the new ones that are out there. Like I said about the pineapple, I think, you know, as soon as I saw that, I was like, brilliant, you know, let's, you know, this is exciting and something that, you know, people should be kind of aware of. So I think lots of development in the future that I think will be.
So I'm just looking at the time. Do you think we should open up for questions? If anyone, I know people have been asking them as they go through, but if you have any questions for us or anything else you would like us to cover, I know Jelly said she finds it frustrating that shoe repair shops refuse to repair trainers. Yeah, I've never had any in, but
yeah, I mean, oh yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean,
there's
I just
nothing
sew
worse
mine
than your
up.
favourite pair of trainers wearing out.
I've been doing a lot of that recently. Yeah, but I know that. Yeah, I don't know actually anywhere. So I suppose the brand you said
Restory.
earlier,
Yeah.
Restore.
Yeah, she did
Restory.
I saw her do like an Instagram takeover when she did jazz up some trainers. So it's possible something that they do.
Yeah, they might be someone to contact. They might be interested,
Yeah,
or maybe they can point you in the right
definitely.
direction. Maybe.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Haven't got any more. Anything else we haven't covered, Sophie?
Check off.
We've talked quite a lot about quite a few different.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey.
I think it just, as with everything, it all just goes back to taking a little bit longer to make your decisions, doesn't it? Slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's about what we've covered in terms of just understanding the source and trying to think about that end of life. I think that's the most important thing. How at the end of this garment's life, or this product thing that I'm having in my home, how will I ultimately get rid of it, and how will it be washed and things like that. I think
that has to be part of your decision at the beginning, and it's what you're going to do at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh.
Well, it's been nice to talk.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and letting us ramble on about fabrics.
Yeah, we hope you've learned a thing or two, or just kind of enjoyed listening to us.
If you do have any more questions for us, we will be live 4 till 6 tomorrow.
Thanks,
and Saturday as well, in our booths in the expo.
Yes, yeah. But you can shop all of our things.
So I'll be in Agnes London.
And I'll be in Zero Living.
Or follow either of us, both of us. Follow both of us on Instagram, and we may talk about fabrics more on there. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Hope you enjoy the rest of the lock-in.